Welcome to the Real Talk Elgin podcast with Heather Keller from the Keller Group of eXp Realty. Heather is a leader in real estate sales and a short sale expert with over 15 years of experience. Heather is on a mission to personally help 100 families avoid foreclosure this year. The Real Talk Elgin podcast is your place to get up-to-date information on real estate trends and learn about the industry. Real Talk is recorded live at the WRMN studios in downtown Elgin. Call in to ask questions live at 847-931-1410, and she'll answer them for you on the air. And now, give a warm welcome to Real Talk Elgin podcast host, Heather Keller.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome. I am your host of Real Talk, Heather Keller, licensed real estate broker with eXp Realty. It is Tuesday. Thank you for joining us. We are live in downtown Elgin at WRMN 1410 Studios, and I am here every other Tuesday providing you with lots of accurate information of all things real estate. So we started off this season with our 5-part series on short sales. We've gotten through 3 parts, and in 2 weeks we'll have part 4. And then we'll talk about part 5 later on in the show. Tonight, I have a special guest who's been on my show before, Laura Baldwin. She is a divorce attorney, so I will welcome her in just a second. But this is season 3. I can't believe it. Season 3, episode 4. And if you haven't already, we have all of our past shows on our Facebook page. You can go to Real Talk Elgin, and you can also go to realtalkelgin.com and listen to everything there. We're also on iHeartRadio. You can ask your Google and Alexa to play Real Talk Elgin. If you're looking for more short sale information, you can go to Chicagoland's leading short sale expert. There's lots of information there about how the process works, and you can ask questions or message us there. So, Laura has been on my show before, so welcome back.
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
So we talked about this like a year ago, and I remember you were pregnant.
Yes.
And I cannot believe your youngest is almost a year now.
Yeah, I know.
I was thinking about that.
Birthday
party. So we talked about having her on the show, but it was like the pandemic and like all this stuff was going on. So we were like, okay, let's have her come. It was August, wasn't it? August?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And it was a dark and stormy night, kind of like tonight.
Oh, it was the storm.
Yes.
Yes, and I was freaking out a little bit. So I'm glad that you're back. It's still kind of stormy outside, which is a little odd, but at least we are spring ahead and it is somewhat light now for the show. So why don't you tell the viewers a little bit about yourself? And if you have any questions throughout this show about divorce or how divorce is handled in real estate, all of that, you can call 847-931-1410. We will be able to answer your questions live. So why don't you tell them a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I'm a partner and the attorney director at STG Divorce Law. I'm a litigator, a trained mediator, and also a collaborative fellow. So I do collaborative law as well. I'm a mom of 2 small kids, as we talked about. I have a 3-year-old son and a 10-month-old daughter. So I'm a little less tired this time than I was last time. Getting a little more sleep. So our law firm, STG Divorce Law, all we do is family law. We have locations in Naperville, St. Charles, Chicago, and Park Ridge. So we have attorneys all over.
And are you in the Park Ridge location?
Yeah, so I live in Park Ridge, and we recently, less than a year ago, opened a small office in Park Ridge.
Okay.
So I go there pretty much every day, but I'll meet clients wherever. Sometimes I'll go to Chicago. I'm going to Naperville on Friday. So we're kind of all over the place, which is nice for our clients, too, because then no matter where they live, it's convenient for them.
So how has the pandemic then affected? Like, is there more divorces going on, or what were you seeing before the pandemic and now that it's hopefully over?
Sure. Yeah, I definitely an uptick in divorce, but some weird ebbs and flows. So there'll be a couple months that'll go by just because other things have been so crazy since the pandemic, just other market fluctuations and world events that have, I think, caused a little bit of apprehension in people, and then things start to normalize again and people are ready to move forward. So it definitely, there are some ebbs and flows, but we have seen an uptick. The interesting thing is, since the pandemic, I, at least personally, have noticed a lot more people interested in alternative dispute resolution, looking for a little bit lower cost divorce, mediation, collaborative law. Maybe it's because they're stuck at home with the person and they know they sort of have to get along through the process, or at least we're stuck at home, probably aren't any longer. But I've noticed people, or maybe they're just being a little more economically conservative, but that's kind of one shift that I've noticed a bit. Also, the courts have been pretty backed up. So since the courts have gone remote, most courthouses are still remote, which is wonderful.
Do you think they'll stay that way?
I think a lot of them will, at least especially for status dates, which are pretty regular and simple. For contested trials and hearings, I think most of them will go back to in-person. But the remote has been so convenient for people. Clients can sign in from work. They don't have to take an entire day off work to go to court. People without attorneys who can't afford attorneys can hop on a Zoom from their job. Part of the reason people might have even hired an attorney before was just because they weren't going to be able to make it to court. So the access to justice has been important. And as practitioners, it's been so convenient. And I can be in Cook County at 9 a.m. and Kane County at 10 a.m., right, which is over an hour apart. So, but what I was saying is also, I think, because of Zoom and the courts trying to figure out that process, divorces were starting to get backlogged. And then some courthouses weren't doing any in person, so they wouldn't schedule final divorce trials or what people needed to get the divorce done. So they just kept getting backlogged, which I think made people realize if we want to get this done, we're not going to use the court system. We need to do collaborative law or resolve it outside of court.
Interesting.
Which is good.
So let's talk about, before we went live, you said there's different types of divorces. So let's go through those step by step so then everyone can get an idea. Because I actually didn't know that. I thought it was just like, okay, you go to court and that's it. But you're saying that the courts are backlogged and who knows how long that's going to be.
Right. Oh my gosh. Cook County, some...
Oh yeah, give us an example. So Cook County.
I have heard, this has not happened to me, I've heard rumors of people getting trial dates in like late 2023.
Holy cats, really?
Yeah. It's crazy. That's not been my experience in a lot of the courtrooms, but there's a Cook County domestic relations Facebook page, so kind of some of the attorneys chatter, and a lot of them are getting really far out dates.
Wow.
The good thing for that is that I guess if individuals are going to work together and they do have a lot invested in the relationship, it's nice to know that it can be a little bit more amicable. Would you say amicable?
Yeah, amicable,
so,
exactly.
Yeah, so it can, you think things over a little bit, You don't want to waste everything. And I think it takes the dukes, putting up the fist out of the equation.
Yeah, it kind of makes everyone step up to the plate a little bit and actually talk about it. And if you go to court, you're stuck with what the judge rules on, right? The judge who doesn't care about you, doesn't care about your kids, doesn't know you, doesn't know the details, and depends on their mood, frankly, that day.
How many times have you had to say that to a couple? Like, listen,
oh my
if
gosh.
we go there, just let you know it's out of your hands. It's no more your choice.
Just this morning I said that to my client. So that brings me to... I guess I wouldn't call them types of divorces, maybe the approaches to getting divorced.
Yes, approaches.
And so one of those is kind of the traditional litigation route, which is what you would think. Somebody files a petition, the other party served, they both get attorneys, and you kind of just go through the motions. Most of those cases, over 90% still settle outside of court. So, you might not think, but divorce trials are relatively rare.
Why would it go to trial?
Typically, if there's kind of a factual dispute, like they can't agree on what somebody's income is, or there's a complicating factor, like somebody's a business owner and they're in dispute about what income he or she brings home. Because
that's where our friends in our group come in, where they can
exactly, which we'll talk about.
Yeah, they were on our show.
Professionals that you need involved in your divorce, there are many. So that's kind of the traditional litigation route.
Okay.
Like I said, many still settle outside of court, and you can still work on settlements outside of court.
But they both have a separate attorney then for...
Typically, but sometimes one party's pro se or self-represented, which means they don't have an attorney. So that, not recommended, but it's possible. But it's hard to navigate on your own. You don't know the system. You don't know the proper paperwork to file. So that can make a case take even longer. So typically it's easier, at least for me, to do my job if there's an attorney on the other side. And then another alternative is mediation.
Okay.
Mediation is where both parties agree to meet with a mediator who's a neutral third party who essentially helps facilitate conversation between the parties and helps them generate solutions to come to a resolution regarding parenting, and it can be parenting or parenting and financials.
I did mediation.
Oh, you did? What was your experience like?
You know what? It was good because it ends up having somebody who has no skin in the game, so to speak. Do you know what I mean? It's somebody that says, okay, I hear you. This is what you should be doing, otherwise it's always he said, she said, and for somebody to come into it and say, okay, there's got to be a way to referee this a little bit, which it seems what it felt like.
Yes.
Yeah, that was years ago though. That was, like in the 90s.
Has that always been around? Because I feel like
It was relatively new in the 90s.
But probably the alternative dispute resolution was relatively new, but mediation comes into play in a lot of areas of law. So a lot of times I have never practiced anything other than family law, but a lot of in other disputes
That makes
it's
sense.
mandated.
Okay.
Did you have an attorney also, or you just went to mediation?
Just mediation.
Okay.
The mediator was an attorney, but you had to state right in the beginning, if I remember correctly, that you agree that she's here for mediating only. She cannot represent. And then after you do mediation, if somehow you decide not to follow through with that, you can never come back to that attorney because they already know parts of the case.
Yes, that's true. They're conflicted out.
Yep.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So if someone comes to me and wants to mediate, I can be their mediator. I'm a trained mediator. Or I would also recommend somebody going through mediation also have an attorney, because the mediator is neutral and isn't going to give you actual legal advice, just to make sure they're not kind of walking away from something that
That's
they
a
may
good
have
point.
been entitled to. So they'll go
I
to
coulda used
mediation.
that.
Yeah, right? Yeah, so you could have gone to mediation, and then the mediator could have written up your agreement, and you could have brought it to an attorney just to look through and ask a few questions to say,
that would have been
I
smart.
think this is okay, or maybe point out something you might not have thought of. So we definitely still recommend people have attorneys. But mediation can obviously be very cost effective because they're paying one person instead of two
And
to
what's
try to
the
reach a
time
resolution.
frame for that?
So it depends. It can be a lot quicker for sure. Typically, mediation sessions are about 2 hours long.
Okay.
And then they can go longer. I don't recommend going longer than 2 hours. It's very hard to sit and actually concentrate for.
Yeah, that seems like a long time.
Yeah, I feel like people start to lose it after the 2 hour mark, and then it's not productive anymore. So the mediation is a 2 hour session, and then the mediator kind of can feel it out and say, hey, I think we need to meet. Let's schedule the next 2 meetings, and then you can see where you're at. So it's hard. It just depends. If they might be mediating parenting only, and then they might go to their attorneys for financials, or they might mediate parenting and financials. That can take a little bit longer. So depends how complex
It's a pain
it
to
is.
get divorced. Don't do it.
It is a pain,
Yeah.
right? I mean, people need to be aware kind of what they're getting into when they get married with the possibility of a divorce. But you're essentially untangling a partnership.
That's right. Yep. And anything that came into the part, it gets to be a nightmare. Yeah.
Yeah.
So find the person you're going to stay with. And I think sometimes for a while it almost became too easy. I think there was a generation that kind of came up and then it says, well, if it doesn't work out,
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah. And luckily, I think we're seeing a little bit more. I think individuals are getting married older
Yes.
nowadays than what they were, in the 80s and 90s. I think they're getting married older, so they're living a little bit of their life, and they've got a little bit more adultness to them, for the lack of a better word.
Experience,
Yep.
education.
So they make logical decisions, not based on gut and instinct.
Exactly.
Mhm.
There's actually, I think somebody told me that there was an increase in divorce with people who were married under the age of 25.
Yep.
So that makes sense because.
Oh, that got married before 25? Interesting.
See, I was married at 19, thus the mediation.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have some friends that
How
got
long were you married then?
12
Okay.
years.
12 years.
Yeah. But now practice.
Yeah.
I called it practice. But yeah, there's a lot that goes into it, and then just even from a cost effectiveness of it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So at that point, that's where a prenuptial agreement or a postnuptial agreement might be something somebody wants to consider. It can kind of help them dictate what might happen if they were to get a divorce. Not that anyone wants to think about that when they're getting married, but it is the reality that it's a possibility.
Well, yeah, you got to protect yourself. Do you do those? Do you do those?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so prenup is before they get married, but I don't think I've heard of a
postnuptial.
Postnuptial agreement is after they're married. So something might change, or somebody might come into some money, or maybe they had something that was their non-marital before they got married that they now want to put into like the marital home, but they want to ensure that they might get that back if they were to get divorced. So there are things that can come up right after you get married that you might want to at least control how it's going to get untangled in the event of a divorce.
See, if somebody was good, if all of a sudden John came to the table and said, "Yeah, it's time to talk about a postnuptial," I would just be, "No way."
I know. Right? It might scare you a little bit.
Right?
I would say
what?
the same thing.
What are
I'd
we
be
talking
like,
about?
what?
Well, I wonder if sometimes people do it for any kind of tax break or something that, you know what I mean? If it comes to the table and then all of a sudden if it's like a gift or something that they got from inheritance or, things like that, if that comes in the picture at all.
With postnuptial agreement?
Right.
No, not that I've seen.
Yeah.
That might more so be like an estate planning mechanism or something like that, which we do not do.
Yeah, we've had estate planning attorney here, and that show actually did that one, and the divorce one did pretty well.
Oh, yeah? See, people want to know these things. People want to know these things, and it's not something a lot of people want to talk about publicly, which I think is changing, right?
Yeah, that. So, and just like with what I do, the short sales, it's no one really wants to talk about it. So if I can have people like Laura on the show, or Jonathan for estate planning, or whatever the case may be, then, hey, people can come here, listen, and get all of your information.
Yeah, they're gobbling up the information for sure.
Definitely. Yeah.
Okay, so you said litigation and mediation. Was there another one?
Yes, collaborative law.
Collaborative law.
So collaborative law is an approach to divorce where each party retains a collaboratively trained attorney. And the reason there's a specific training is you have to go through 40 hours of mediation training to even do the collaborative training. And then there's collaborative training, which basically teaches you about the collaborative process and how to approach these cases collaboratively. So the purpose of the collaborative process is that the parties and the attorneys come together in a series of settlement conferences, and they all sign a participation agreement that says they're committing to the collaborative process. They agree not to go to court.
Okay.
And if the collaborative process fails or one party decides to go to court, then actually everybody has to terminate their relationships with their attorneys and start over. So it's a big incentive to stay in the collaborative process and not have people be using the threat of litigation to get what they want, so to speak. And the point of collaborative is to work as they call it your collaborative team. So everybody's actually working as a team to come up with solutions. So it's a solutions-focused process versus an adversarial process. So litigation is adversarial, right? Somebody comes and demands something. It's very positional. This is what I want, and we're going to do whatever is necessary to get it. Whereas collaborative is more of kind of a needs-based analysis of where's this person really coming from? Why is it they think they want this? And everybody kind of works together to uncover what their needs are so they can come up with solutions that fit those needs. So it's a very cool process because people leave happier with their agreement. Obviously, there's a lot. They feel heard. They feel like solutions were developed that fit their needs, so they're a lot happier with the agreement they come up with versus a judge just telling you what your divorce is, what's going to happen with your kids and your assets. And you can be a lot more creative with your agreements. So you're not, if you go to court, you're stuck with, the judge can only work within what the statute says, and You know, you either sell your house or someone buys the other out. You know, with a collaborative divorce, you can be a little bit more creative. Maybe somebody wants to stay there until one child graduates from high school and they'll co-own it together for that time, or whatever it may be. They can be a little bit more creative. So
Chances are they can bring ideas to the table too that maybe an attorney, instead of button heads all the time like you would in
Yes.
litigation, somebody can bring ideas to the table that you wouldn't have thought of on your own. So I like that.
Yeah.
yeah.
Is that one most popular? It seems like that would be a
no,
great.
you know what's funny? It should be.
Yeah, it should
Yeah.
be.
I'm a really big advocate of it. It doesn't work in some cases. You definitely can have a high conflict collaborative case and it can work. You need attorneys who understand high conflict personalities. But it does require full disclosure. So you don't have the backup of the court in terms of like turning over financial information. If there's a real concern, somebody's hiding assets or somebody's not going to be forthcoming with information, the process isn't going to work. So as part of the participation agreement you sign, there's a big component that it's full disclosure, and we understand that nothing's hidden, nothing's like a gotcha moment. It's just not how it works. So in some cases it wouldn't necessarily work, but I'm a big proponent of it. It's gaining a lot more traction. I wish it would gain more, and there's a lot of push to do that in Illinois and throughout the United States.
Until
Yeah.
today, I'd never heard of it.
No,
Wow.
and I'm sure we talked about it on the previous show, but that just seems. I mean, my parents got a divorce when I was young, so I kind of went through a lot, and it wasn't pretty, and it was through the courts. It was in Michigan, and
How old were you?
I was 15, I think, when it was finalized.
Okay.
And my sister was 2 years younger than me. So I think for the sake of children, with going through that type of situation, the collaborative law to me sounds like a good option.
Right?
If
Yeah.
they can really do that. And I don't know. I've never been through a divorce. I hope that I never go through one. But it seems like the parents really need to think about the process for the kids.
They absolutely, and
know.
unfortunately, a lot of them.
And if you have to go to a
Don't.
court, the judge is going to tell you,
Yes. What to do with your own child.
Yeah, like when this, whatever the, like, okay, one weekend you have them and the next. Yeah, that's crazy.
And the court can even tell them what decisions to make for the child if they can't make them together. So it's to put that in the hands of a judge who
does not know you at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah. The situation, the living arrangements, nothing. Yeah.
Right. Right.
That's very interesting. I don't remember the collaborative law. If you're out there and you're, wanting information on divorce, look into
Yes,
collaborative
please.
law. Go to Laura's, what's your website again? Tell them.
STG Divorce Law.
Yes, and we'll give her contact information in return. We're going to take a short break, and we'll talk about divorce and real estate when we return.
Welcome back to Real Talk Elgin with real estate expert Heather Keller. Call 847-931-1410 and Heather will be happy to answer your questions about real estate. And now back to Studio 14 in downtown Elgin for more Real Talk Elgin with Heather Keller.
Welcome back. Before we get talking more with Laura about divorce and real estate, I wanted to talk about my upcoming shows. So 2 weeks from now, we'll be back April 5th. Can you believe it's almost, the first quarter's almost done?
Yeah, I thought about that the other day. That's crazy it's going so fast.
For some reason, it just doesn't feel like late March. I almost said February. So April 5th, we'll be back part 4 of our short sale series, negotiations and the short sale approval letter. So Leah will be here having a chat with me about that.
She's great.
Yeah, she's okay. And then we have another guest in between that final part 5, which is May 3rd. crazy. That is how to get the short sale closed. So mixed in between that and after, we're going to do lots of stuff, bankruptcy, delinquent taxes, all that fun stuff. So stay tuned. If you want to listen to all of our past shows, season 1, season 2, start of season 3, you can go to realtalkelgin.com. All of them are there, or wherever you listen to podcasts, you can download them. If you haven't, you can get a free copy of my book, The Complete Guide to Selling Your Home as a Short Sale. I wrote this. It is the process, generally how a short sale works from start to finish. Every short sale situation is a little bit unique, but this is just a general process. So if you'd like a copy, you can go to realtalkelgin.com, click on Short Sale Guide on the top right. It will take you directly to my website. You can fill out the form, and we'd be happy to drop a copy off, mail it to you. You can also text or call 224-407-2220. Again, that's 224-407-2220. Or you can email us, info@tkghomes.net. All right, so let's talk about some more divorce. So our first segment of it was the approaches to divorce, which was very interesting. So if you have any questions maybe about collaborative law or the other ones that we talked about, please call in. We can get your questions answered live, 847-931-1410. So let's talk about what happens when there's real estate involved with a divorce.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you go through that pretty much all the time.
Yes.
Most divorces probably have some sort of real estate.
Yes.
Okay.
I would definitely say the majority at least have a marital home they're living in.
Okay.
Every now and then I get, a couple that's renting, so it's a non-issue. But
Okay. So how does that work then? Like there's probably a process.
Yes. So depends if they acquired the real estate during the marriage.
Okay, so there's during and then probably before, right?
Yes, and then some people come into the marriage with a piece of real estate that then both parties agree they're going to live in. It can get a little bit complicated if somebody buys the piece of real estate right before the marriage. It depends whether the other spouse's name is added to it. So there's kind of all these complicating factors that define whether the home is going to be considered a marital asset or not.
Oh, I have a good question. So a lot of people will buy a home before they get married. Do you suggest them to wait to get married? Or buy the home? Because a lot of people will buy the home and then get married kind of at the same time.
So they buy the home together and then get married at the same time? Okay. No, so in that regard, they should sort of plan out how they're going to title the home and make sure that what they're doing is in line with their intention. So if this is intended to be their home together, they're both putting money into it.
Got it.
They both plan to pay the mortgage together, then they really should talk to somebody about making sure it's titled properly. Because let's say one person buys it, puts the down payment down, and then it's only titled in that person's name. And then they go, then they get married a couple months later, and then they go along the process. Even if they're both paying the mortgage, that person might be able to say, if they get divorced 10 years later, that he or she purchased that house before the marriage and it's a non-marital asset. And mortgage payments aren't necessarily...
Even if it was coming out of her account.
you don't necessarily
Doesn't consider a right to ownership.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. And a lot of times the court will just look at that like they paid rent to live somewhere.
Sucks to be you.
Yeah.
Really, you should have thought about that. Some of that almost seems like it goes into estate planning or what you're doing when you're preparing for your future too. It's a good thing to know. Mm-hmm.
It's almost like people need to take a class to get married to understand all of the things they're
that's
getting
a good
into.
idea.
Yeah. I mean, you're making all of these arrangements together that could seriously impact you if you were to get divorced later on.
Somebody needs to start that. That's a great idea.
Could
You have to
start-
do
I'll
it.
write, I'll write that down.
Yeah,
on my
there you go.
Business ideas.
Write that down, and then you can have people come in and talk about it. You can talk about, divorce, scare them a little bit so they know that they can't get a divorce.
Right.
And then, real estate or estate planning. That's actually a really good idea.
Mm-hmm.
I think so too. I'm
Leah?
gonna look into it.
Future. On WRMN.
I'll give you
Yes. We can come and talk about it here. All right. So let's talk about then if they do buy it during during marriage. Let's just say they got married and then they go and buy the house. I feel like that's kind of, at least that's what my husband and I did. So what happens then during the divorce process? Is is there different approaches like what we talked about for real estate or not?
Yeah, so real estate, if you were to look at kind of the black and white way to do it, if you go to court, the way the judge would probably do it, is if there's a dispute about who keeps it, they're likely just going to have it be listed for sale.
The judge will determine that.
And the parties split the proceeds after closing costs.
Okay.
If the parties agree or they can make an argument and the judge agrees, one party might be able to buy out the other party. So it would have to get appraised, or at least they'd have to agree upon a fair market value for the house, and then they would pay the other person their portion of the equity. Typically 50%, not always.
But you were saying that too, I think it was before the show, and you were talking about how the prices vary so much.
Yes.
Like that's something to take into consideration,
Well,
what you think you
especially
might be doing now.
Yeah, with the market fluctuations, things have changed with the way people are handling real estate, because you almost used to be able to get an appraisal and then kind of just rely on that value for several months. You can't really do that anymore.
No, but it's going to turn. So I would suggest if someone is going through a divorce to just sell it if you have the equity and pull the equity out, because the prices can't continue to go up like this.
Right.
So just sell it. That way you're done.
Right.
So I see
Get rid of the high price.
Yeah,
property
so
and
I
get the
see
most
it
money
now.
you can out of it.
Yeah, so sell it and get as much money as you can.
Yeah.
Now, let's say maybe they were going through a divorce during the pandemic, and maybe they were in the forbearance, or the moratoriums have ended. So that's a tricky situation, because people are like, how are short sales even around right now? The market's so crazy. Well, every situation is unique, so you kind of got to ask those questions. And it could be a short sale, but then they would have to cooperate, both of them, for that. So it can get a little bit tricky when there's real estate involved.
So I had judges do encourage short sales when that's kind of the most financially
so if someone's
advantageous
behind
option for the parties. Yes, so I would definitely recommend that they come talk to you about the process if they're looking to sell it. So the other tricky part about the market right now is, it used to be a lot more feasible for one party to buy the other party out. People grow kind of emotionally attached to their homes. So I've had cases where even if it's likely not in their financial best interest to keep the home, they just insist that that's something that they have to do, and they want to buy the other person out. And right now that's a difficult time to do that, because you're going to be buying them out at top
high
dollar.
prices, yeah.
We were just talking about this before we went on, and the prices are insane right now.
Yeah.
I mean, they're still going over asking. Even like the short sales, I'll get at least that or even above. So it's...
Wow.
But with the short sales, you have to wait.
And then can you still do a short sale if it goes...
Yeah, so I've done many divorce cases. So it's a very tricky situation, because sometimes I'm dealing with two different divorce attorneys. But they come to me because I'm, the expert on how to get the short sale done, which can be very complicated. But a lot of times I'll meet with them separately. But people think, oh, can you even do short sales now? So let me give you an example. If they stop making their payments, say March 2020 during the pandemic, and they're now out of the moratoriums and the forbearances, what are they going to do with all that money? It just doesn't go away, all those payments they didn't make. So it's either going to go on the back end of the loan. It just depends on what agreement you had with the bank that you signed. I don't know. You
So if it
look
goes
at
on
that.
the back end and now they might be getting divorced, looking to...
Yeah, so then people forget to take into consideration all those payments that they didn't make. So that adds to it. So it just really depends how much they owed before, and then what money you have to tack on for the back payments. And then if it did go to foreclosure, not like started the foreclosure process, then there's going to be fees for that too.
Right.
So I'm seeing a lot of them either getting the first mortgage paid and the second is a short, or we can sell as a traditional, but it's very tight. So it just, every situation's different.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
the divorce cases are very hard. Yeah, because, maybe, like I have one right now, it's in Evanston. The dad had already moved out and the mom is still living there with the kids. but they both agreed to. They have to agree. They have to agree to use you, because the judge doesn't pick that, right? Or does the
So they could, if the parties can't agree to a realtor, then the judge certainly could appoint somebody.
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't sure how all of that worked, because most of the cases I worked with that were divorce, they both wanted to work with me. But how does that how does that work if one wants to, one doesn't? Then the judge decides. But what if they're in like the collaborative process? Then how does that work? They both agree?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or they pick someone the two attorneys pick, or they might pick somebody neutral to help handle the situation. With a judge, though, like let's say I wanted my client to use you and the other side didn't want to use you, then we could go to the judge, file some sort of motion basically to appoint a realtor, or to have the judge decide who the realtor is going to be. And I would make my arguments for you. The parties need a short sale, and she's the expert in short sales. And then the judge would decide.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I learned a lot in the show, man.
I'm sure.
Yeah, can you see me? Because I'm.
You don't need to read another book again.
Yeah, you're looking at me. I'm like, yeah.
You're usually over there taking a ton of notes.
I'm just absorbing it all right now. Yeah.
I'm taking the notes today, because when we go to post, I want to make sure I have all the correct information.
Yeah. Well, if you need any follow up, let me know.
So, when there's real estate involved, how do you go about like determining the value? So if like one person says, hey, it's worth this, it's very crazy market, as we all know. I say it's a nutting market. So do both of them get an appraisal, or how?
Yeah.
Because appraisals can vary slightly.
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
You know, like when we went to go buy our house, we actually were renting it before. So we didn't have to use realtors. We just went to the owner and we said, hey, we want to purchase it. They had an appraisal done, and then we had an appraisal done.
Oh,
To make sure you're on the same page.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I highly recommend that. Maybe you're renting and you want to purchase, get your own appraisal. So they were very off. They were
Really?
they were very off. So
what did you do with the difference?
well, we didn't want to leave the house, so we came up to an agreement.
Okay.
And eventually, because we got financing on it, of course it had to appraise. It did, so we were fine. But yeah, there was definitely a discrepancy.
What happens when it goes to court like that? I mean, obviously, when there's a discrepancy, the judge is the one that overrules, or that makes the final decision. But
exactly. So
that's like so obvious when it's such a big difference.
So in a pretty contentious case, both parties would get their own appraiser, and both of those appraisers would have to be called to testify at trial, and the judge would weigh their credibility and decide which appraiser
was acceptable.
Yeah.
Okay. Would they make them maybe go get a third one?
I suppose. Well, the court can always appoint its own expert.
Okay.
Probably not, and a judge might sort of push that along the way, like. Before you get to the trial, there's a lot of conversations that are had and meetings with the judge, and the judge might, encourage, hey, let's not waste our time at trial. Why don't, if you guys have two appraisers, why don't those two appraisers pick a third appraiser, and let's just do the average of all three or something. So yes, it definitely might be thrown out as an option to try to get people to settle. Some parties would agree just to use like a comparative market analysis, because then they don't have to pay for the appraisal.
Yeah, that's something. So it's CMA report.
Yeah,
like I can just pull that together, and
yes,
and I do that a lot for bankruptcy attorneys, actually. So,
oh, okay, yeah, definitely, yeah. Yes, so a realtor can just pull up the comps and come up with what they think the house may sell for.
That's how some of the banks do it for like short sales. Like they don't always order a full-blown appraisal. They order a BP.
Especially during the pandemic. They
didn't.
People wouldn't go in the homes.
Oh,
they did not, no.
Yeah.
Which was a little hard for me, because some of the homes have a lot of deferred maintenance. And so I like people to go in. But a lot of times the banks would order just a BPO, which stands for Broker's Price Opinion. So it's a lot like a comparative analysis report, or what you said? CMA. Sorry. So it's a lot like that. But then other ones would actually order an appraisal. So they, they're not. I always tell people they're like an appraisal, only not as extensive. The appraisal's more in depth.
Right. Yeah. So in this market, it's a little bit crazy though, because if you're going to buy somebody out, like you have to be aware that.
Well, that's the hard part, because in a divorce, if you have the real estate, you either are going to, one, buy someone out, which in these crazy prices, that usually one person probably can't afford the house, right? So,
well, already, I mean, before the market, fluctuations and inflation, people already really couldn't afford. Most people probably can't really afford to buy out their marital home and afford that expense on their own. I mean, a lot of households
it's
now
like
all dual incomes are paying for that expense. So it already was difficult to afford, and now with the prices of the homes, it's even more challenging.
Plus the taxes, like where we're at, the taxes are like $11,000 a year.
My gosh,
That's
I know.
That's super high. Park Ridge is
very
super high. So that doesn't help either.
Right.
So they either have the option of buying them out, which is probably unlikely right now. Have you seen it lately? I'm just curious.
Yeah. I have a case right now where my client and her husband own a townhome, and it's actually, and here's the other thing you have to look at though. If she were to go get a rental, it'd probably almost be more expensive.
Oh,
so
yeah.
in this situation, well, it's probably not the norm. It does make more sense for her to buy him out and keep the
and
property.
The rental market is I'm not as familiar with the rental market. That's why I have Sean on the show to talk about the rental market. But
what's he saying? Have you had him on in a while?
He was on, you know what, when I'm planning the second half, I'll have to bring him back.
Yeah.
Because
it was before the holidays. I think.
He's helping a lot of our short sale clients right now get into rentals. So he's gotten every single person into a rental. But a personal situation. So we bought a piece of land, and we're going to build. And we thought, okay, let's sell our house, take advantage of the hot market, and then go rent somewhere.
Yeah.
But that would be a double move. So I started looking at rentals because I'm not very familiar with rentals. The only thing available was a townhouse. So my family would have to move into a townhouse, and it was about $400 or $500 more than what our mortgage is right now.
Was,
In the house.
Yep.
And I was like, okay, so we're going to have to move twice and pay more in rent for a smaller place. So we decided we're just going to stay put. We don't have to sell in order to build. So yes, it is,
Yeah, it's definitely something you have to think about. And things are just all over the place right now. So it's important for me to kind of talk through with my client, like, where are you going to live after? Because it's obviously going to help make your decision. Are you going to stay in the same town and buy another house? Because then you're going to sell a high-priced house just to buy another high-priced house. Or are you going to move to somewhere more affordable? Are you going to rent? What's the rental market like?
Yeah.
What are you looking for? A 2-bedroom, a 3-bedroom? What do you
So
need?
Sean's very good at that. So if you ever need help, he's, he meets the deadlines. He's very good at getting everything done, especially with people who've had like bankruptcies or short sales or foreclosures.
That's really great.
I feel he has magic powers.
Oh, he does. I just give him the information, and
I
it's
wish
like,
we all had
bam.
that.
And, I'm like, I don't know how, like, I just
Is he
love.
in this area?
Yeah. Well, he does all over Chicagoland.
Oh, okay. Great.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, like, we have a client out. He just helped someone out in Elmhurst. And where was the other one? Evanston he's working on right now. So he is all over the place, yeah. Just depends where the short sales are at.
Yeah.
So if people need help after that, short sale, divorce, whatever, then he'll come in and help with that.
That's awesome. Good
Yeah.
to know. What's his last name?
Israel. Sean.
Mm-hmm.
I'd have to look up his number because, as you know, we all have cell phones. You just put the numbers in there, and no one ever knows anything anymore. I'm surprised I even know my number. But, yeah, so if anyone is interested, then they can just text or call 224-407-2220. And I can connect you with either Laura, which we need to provide your contact information, or Sean. So go ahead and provide it all. Did you put it on the
I do.
Okay.
I did.
Yes. So my email, Laura, Laura, at stglaw.com. So that's Laura at S as in Sam, T as in Tom, G as in girl, LAW.com. Email me anytime. Happy to answer questions. My phone number is 630-384-8187. Text, call. I'm happy to answer your questions. And our website is stglaw.com.
And she's all over Chicagoland.
Yes.
So it doesn't matter where you're at. I get that question a lot. Like, do you do real estate everywhere, like your team? And I always say yes. She's all over. So.
Yes. And we're mostly remote. We're flexible. We have attorneys.
So do you do a lot of Zoom stuff still?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, it's great. Allows for a lot of flexibility. And like I said, I can be in St. Charles and Chicago and DuPage in the same morning if I wanted to.
It allows you to get a lot more done, for sure.
Yes,
Yeah, you're
very
not spending
efficient.
that time on the road.
Yeah.
Yeah, that does help. I guess my final kind of question is, when you're going through a divorce, you have to have like a team, like divorce, maybe estate planning. And I know that we're a part of that group,
Yes.
which we've had on the show before.
Yes, the Illinois Financial
Yes,
Group.
Illinois Financial Group. And so let's talk about just briefly what other representatives that can be a part of your team.
Yeah. So for our firm and for me, part of the importance in the service we're delivering to the client is building this team for them if that's what they want. That we're not just there to help them get divorced in the moment. We're there to bring them into their future and to make sure they're comfortable and they're set moving forward. So divorce is complicated, so it involves real estate. So you very well may need a good realtor. You may need a good mortgage lender. You may need, definitely, I suggest people see a financial advisor. Helpful if they'll do so from the beginning of the process. Most are somewhat reluctant. A lot of times one of the spouses is dealing with their accountant, for example, and the other spouse has maybe been left in the dark a little bit. So I like to give them, a name of somebody they can confidently use that's their own accountant that can help them moving forward with their tax
That's
questions.
so good to know, because I think so many times in a relationship, especially the sneaky ones, they're always trying to hide money
Yes.
or make sure the other one doesn't know about it, because I don't know why, upper hand, I'm not really sure. But
Right.
it's nice to know that there are teams like that will take care of the underdog, so to speak.
Yeah,
Make sure you get fair
exactly.
representation.
And we want to make sure they're educated and that's okay that they don't know what they don't know, but then let's provide them with
That's
the
awesome.
people to
And
best
that's why
advise
the
them.
group was founded, was
Yes.
to really kind of say, okay, you're getting a divorce, but you may need help with financial planning. Or like I was just saying, like if someone owns a business, he can come in and analyze the business.
So
as
this
well.
Yes.
is, you guys are part of this team, or you're the law firm has this team?
No, it's
No,
just
no, no,
she started the group.
Yeah,
Okay.
so we built, myself and Rob Baranowski, who's a financial advisor, built this group,
He was
Illinois.
on the show before.
He was
Yeah.
on the show. Maybe him and I should do a show together.
Fine. Done.
Him and I built the group in an effort to bring clients a team of people that could help them through their divorce journey.
That's
onto
awesome,
their
yeah.
future. Yeah. So it's just a separate, a networking opportunity for us, and also a benefit for our clients that we have a trusted group of people, names of people that we can give them that we trust to handle our clients' needs.
Fantastic.
That's a good
Yeah.
idea. When we have lunch, because Rob and Laura and I are having lunch
Yeah.
coming up, we'll talk about the second half, because I think it's great to bring on, like, okay, we're the Illinois Financial Group. Why are we here? How can we help?
Yeah.
So we're all there to provide. There's like different people to provide different things.
Absolutely.
So, well, that hour has gone by
It has.
super
I'll
fast.
say.
It always does. But Laura, thank you for coming on. I
Yes.
love having you on.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, we'll probably be back in the second half with Rob. We'll have to talk to him about that.
Sounds
To
good.
bring more information about the Illinois Financial Group. But we will be back in 2 weeks for our 5-part series. It is part 4, negotiations and the approval letter. So make sure you join us live in 2 weeks. And again, if you haven't heard any of our past shows, please go to realtalkelgin.com and you can listen to everything there. Thank you to Leah, and I will be back in 2 weeks. Bye.